Right then, so I'm just going to quickly share some results from a test a couple of weeks ago. This is Elspeth. I haven't got it up. This is Elspeth. She's again a recreational cyclist, and what she wants to do is, well, she doesn't really know where she needs to improve. I think she just follows the training that she's kind of given her, but clearly working. She enjoys cycling, there's a fair bit at the weekend, but wants to know how to kind of maximise her performance. So I think what we can see is that, before going to that, is she's got a VO2 max of 58.3, which is bloody good, okay? So really impressive, because normally kind of on the bike, it's slightly lower, or it can be slightly lower, especially if you're not a cyclist, a really good cyclist, because simply you don't use as much oxygen when you're on the bike compared to running. So having, say, something like that is very, very impressive. So hopefully, if you have seen the previous videos, hopefully you're starting to understand of what we're looking for here. So first thing we're looking for is the size of the engine, which is the VO2 max. And we can see it again, very high, almost 60. And this is a recreational cyclist, and really, really impressive, absolute machine. However, what we can see is her anaerobic threshold. So remember, this is the point at which you're producing as much lactate as you can clear. So I guess this is your aerobic power. This is kind of where really kind of your performance is dictated from this number, really. But what we can see, it's about, where's my, oh, film it again. It's quite low. It's not low, it's about 70%, 75% of her VO2 max. So what we can see is a big portion of this that needs to be closed up. So remember, we want to build the engine with the VO2 max, or the size of your engine, then we want to fill it up with a better anaerobic threshold. So we can see she definitely needs to work on closing that gap. However, if you can remember the last video I did about Adam, he had not necessarily a small VO2 max, but his threshold was really close to his max. So he was almost utilizing the whole of his engine. So he couldn't really go anywhere. There's no point in him doing lots of, say, threshold work, because he's already hit his ceiling. Whereas we look at Elspeth, she's got a lot of room to cover here. So for her training would be more to focus on, say, pulling that threshold up. I'll go into sessions in a second, because I've spoken to a friend recently, really accomplished cyclist, and some good insights from him. What we also saw is that aerobic thresholds, again, remember this kind of coincides with fat burning as well, isn't brilliant, and it's not really poor, it's not the worst I've seen. But here you can see that she's using a fair bit of carbs at the start, both. She's using carbohydrates and fat even at low intensity. So remember, the product of using carbohydrates as fuel is lactate. Lactate is fine if you can clear it. However, we don't want to be producing this from so early on, because essentially the more lactate you have, it's a byproduct, it's got to be cleared. So that's going to affect your long-term or more longer duration cycling. So this is definitely something that Elspeth does need to work on. And to do this, and she came in with Adam, they both need to spend more time in this zone 2, the lower end, to push this aerobic threshold up. So to optimize those conditions, you want to train with no lactate. So that means pretty easy stuff. So it might seem easy, but over time, what she wishes to see is we increase her power, the what she produces at the same intensity, so the heart rate. In terms of kind of how to develop the threshold, this is kind of almost similar to me. I've got a relatively high VO2 max in comparison to my anaerobic threshold, so I had to push it up. What I was doing initially is I need to improve the threshold, let's do kind of threshold sessions. However, speaking to a friend who, again, really good cyclist, knows his stuff, he was saying, like, sometimes at the start of the season, like now, there's no point, say, doing hard threshold work from the onset, because you're not going to see that gradual ramp. And again, similar to running, when I used to do more of that, is that you don't want to kind of burn out too quickly. So again, over time, just gradually improve it. So this is probably where, say, some of your sweet spots training, some threshold intervals as well, potentially some short sprint interval training as well, because they work well together, will be effective at increasing this anaerobic threshold. So I think, just to sum up, very good VO2 max. She's got a really big engine. There's no point in her doing VO2 max intervals like with Adam. However, she does need to push this and close this gap. So to do this, we need to do some threshold work, probably some sweet spot work, and if she's got the time, and well, she also has to do a lot of zone 2 work. So it'd be good to chat to her. This is just what I can take from the data, and I think this is where you need a coach, really, because this is where, especially if you're getting better, I think, because there's a lot of nuance to this. I can see that she needs to work on certain things. I roughly know what can be done to improve those areas. However, if you're looking at, say, planning your training year, this is where a coach comes into play, and this is where you're going to have to speak to that. Remember, coaching, testing vouchers, they're 15% off until the end of this month, so make sure you get those now. Hopefully, touch wood, will be open back in February. let's just see what Boris has to say. But get in touch, get those vouchers so you can come in and get something this done. So you're going to improve your performance. Yeah, you're going to get a lot better. So any questions, love to hear them. Speak to you soon.